hello. Yes, here we go. So, hello. Uh, I have been meaning to make this video for a bit. So, uh, yeah, we're gonna go and take a look at One D&D. Expert classes. Expert classes. Yes. So, I have both the Unearthed Arcana PDF up, and you probably can't tell, but I also have tabs for all the videos they did. And I think we're gonna watch the video and then talk about, you know, different points and, well, different points that are in the document. But to start off, this is about what they now call the expert class group, which has bards, rangers, rogues, and artificers. I don't know if I would combine them like that. In fact, in Celestia, I did not. I did not. I feel they have more to do with, like, how do I want to put it? Well, like, bards, I considered a hybrid class. Ranger was a martial class, just like barbarians, fighters. Though monks weren't considered warriors in my group either. They were hybrids. Yeah. Sorry, the music was doing strange things to my brain. Rogue also went in the warriors classification when I did it. Obviously, they went things a little bit differently. So, yeah. Instead, we get experts. And why don't we just have a look and, Oh, it's just gonna start off. I'm gonna have to pause the music. We'll come back to that. And I probably want to raise this up.
Hello everyone, we have a brand new Unearthed
that's loud.
Arcana. We have classes, subclasses, we have feats, conditions, we
So
have
let's
new
take a
rules
look.
having to do with skill checks and attack rolls, as well as how a critical hit functions. So let's just delve in right now and have an overview of all of that.
This Unearthed Arcana is filled with things I can't wait for people to play test. We're playing testing them internally here at Wizards, and leading the pack in this playtest for the classes are the Ranger, the Bard, and the Rogue. People are going to see in the next few months, all of the classes from the 2014 Player's Handbook are going to appear in Unearthed Arcana so that people can read them, give feedback, play test them. Following after that, you're going to see a series of Unearthed Arcanas that also unveil new versions of subclasses, as well as some brand new subclasses for those classes. The total number of subclasses when all is said and done, 48. So we have a lot of fun
That sounds
things
like a lot,
ahead of
but
us.
I've done more than 48
to try out.
Celestia.
But today, we're focused on
So,
our friends, the Bard, the Ranger, and the Rogue, along with, as you mentioned, a bunch of feats, because each of these classes, like all of the classes in the game, has the option at certain levels of taking feats, including the new ability score improvement feat, which many fans rightly predicted is what was going to be coming. And sure enough, when you reach any of the levels that in the past where you would have gotten the ability score improvement feature, now you have the option of taking the ability score improvement feat, does exactly the same thing as the ability score improvement feature in the 2014 Player's Handbook, or you can take another feat of your choice.
Though I'm glad to see
if your
feats
group
have made a
is
comeback.
deciding
So
to go
that's
beyond
good.
the ability
I
score
mean, they
improvement
were always
feat
there,
and the
but
first level
they were
feat
optional.
that you're
So
getting from your background in the previous Unearthed Arcana. This
yeah,
UA
if you
also
didn't see it, I did make
includes
a video about
the
the first
Arcane,
one,
Divine, and
the
Primal
Origins one.
spell lists all the way up to level 9, and it includes a rules glossary that is filled with even more treasures than the previous one.
And we'll take a look at that as well.
And here I want to pause a little bit and talk about how do you use these Unearthed Arcanas together? Because now that we have 2 out as a part of the One D&D playtest, we would love for people to play using material from multiple One D&D Unearthed Arcanas. The one main thing to keep in mind as people playtest is that the rules glossary of each UA supersedes the rules glossaries of any previous One D&D UAs. So we'd love for you to take
that's how a test
character origin options from the
Well,
previous
an
UA,
incremental test,
combine
anyway.
them with the classes and feats in this UA, but use only the rules glossary from the new Unearthed Arcana. Because over the course of the next year and a half, we're going to try out different versions of core rules and then see what people think of those different versions. A great
Yes, that's a
example of this
playtest.
is how we're
We
handling
established
critical
this.
hits.
Yes.
So you and I, in our video last time,
And I had lots of
talked
things
about the
to say
fact
about
that the
critical
previous Unearthed
hits.
Arcana had a rule that we knew was very experimental
Right.
and had a good chance of not being what the community was going to cheer for, but we were interested in seeing what do people think.
Yeah.
Because there were some angles to that rule that we were fascinated in seeing how can this serve the game. We've already seen some of the responses, and you're going to see this time that for the current version of the playtest, we are using the critical hit rule as it exists in the 2014 Player's Handbook. So again,
Well,
make
that's
sure
fine. Definitely.
if you're playtesting and everyone else is playtesting, read the new rules glossary, where you'll also see that we are experimenting with different rules this time around for the D20 test. This time we don't have the universal rule of a 20 always succeeding and a 1 always failing. Instead, we are playing around with some other approaches.
Thankfully.
Although you're
Thankfully.
also going to find a familiar friend in that we're largely using the 2014 version of the rule, with the catch that this time we're testing rolling a 1 on a D20, giving you inspiration.
Yeah. That's
Yes.
Because
yes.
we basically
That's how it should
have
be.
3 different modes we are looking at for getting inspiration in play.
I don't really
Last
know
time,
why they
we
would
asked everyone to try
have
out
to, like,
getting it
play
when you roll a
test
20.
that.
This time we're asking you to try it out when you roll a 1. We also,
It's
in
what
the
I'm already doing
previous
in
Unearthed
Celestia,
Arcana,
and I
had
have
another
for, like,
mode
over a
in
year
the
now.
human
So,
of getting inspiration when you
well,
finish a long
I wasn't
rest.
really using
We've
a lot of
actually
inspiration,
considered
but
having that as a potential rule for everybody, but right now we want to try out the roll a 1 rule for everybody, and then humans have the special feature of getting it
yeah,
at the end.
I don't know if I like
of
it
a long
with
rest.
just humans.
Now, speaking of humans and the
That
other
seems
content
oddly
in the
powerful.
previous Unearthed Arcana, the survey for that UA is still open, and the response
It is
has
not
been
any longer.
tremendous.
So if you haven't
As of
done it,
today,
you're sadly a
over
little late.
40,000 people have completed the survey. We'll see how many more people have completed it by the time the survey closes.
It took me like an
next week.
hour to do. It was kind of annoying.
We are then going to go
There's a lot of
into
depth.
our investigation of what has everyone said about the different options that were in that UA. We will look at all of the satisfaction scores. And then in a future video, you and I will get together and we'll talk about what did people say. And then
I doubt
at
they
a
will
future
like
point
mine.
in this journey we're on together, we'll
I was
present a
dissatisfied
new
with
version
lots
of
of
that Unearthed
things.
Arcana, incorporating people's feedback. That's going to be the cycle that we're all in together during this long playtest. Just like we did in D&D Next, we're going to present something, we're going to get the feedback back, we'll analyze it, we'll do a new version incorporating feedback, and then we'll get feedback on that new version until, in a few years' time, the game coalesces into the new core books.
We're also going to have several videos all about this Unearthed Arcana that will go a little bit more in depth. It is important to remember.
I kind of wish if we had an existing copy, we could just get a new
We are very
rulebook.
excited. And if you're watching this video, please remember, we appreciate all the comments on YouTube and other social networks, but what will really help us in the end is if you download the playtest and then take the survey that comes out and leave your feedback. That is how you help us sculpt the future of D&D together.
Yeah, filling out that survey.
You guys watching can also definitely help with that.
On where this is
if you have ideas or comments,
to responding
to
what
feel free to talk to me about them.
We're also
and also fill out their
do
survey.
Experiments. So I mentioned we are dealing with the D20 test and getting inspiration differently this time. That's just simply our design process proceeding. That's not even in response to the feedback yet because the survey is still open.
Obviously.
So people are going to get to see.
But you know what the feedback could be?
We've heard from the community that they would like to see. You're also going to see new versions of things based on our own internal playtesting and also just different versions of mechanics we want to try out. This is a playtest. And part of that is testing out sometimes multiple versions of things to see which one on its own resonates most for all of us as DMs and players of this game. And then even further, which options sync up well with the other pieces of the game. Because D&D is a game with hundreds, if not thousands of moving parts.
Obviously.
And we want to make sure that
that's all game systems. I've used a lot.
Things are really running together.
He's mostly talking about playtests, and he has been for almost 10 minutes at this point.
Exactly what I want it to be.
That's a lot of talk about the concept
this time around,
of a playtest.
What we're asking people to look at are these classes, which also are framed in a way that is new for the current version of the game.
Let's go ahead and dig into the classes then. So we've got 3 of the classes here, and then we've got subclasses attached. So tell me about what's changed.
So one of the first things is that framing that is going to be new for people. And that is that these 3 classes are presented as experts. So people are going to see in this Unearthed Arcana that the 12 classes of the Player's Handbook, as well as the Artificer, who, while not in the Player's Handbook, gets mentioned in this UA, each of these classes is now a part of a group in this playtest. The Ranger, the Rogue, and the Bard are part of what's currently called the Expert group. So hence the name of this Unearthed Arcana, the
I'm
Expert
still
class.
not sure I would call them that.
In future Unearthed Arcanas, you're going to see the other class groups featured, but we wanted to start with the experts. Now, this new concept of class group, new for the current version of the game, is something that has appeared in D&D's history at various times.
Yes,
going
there
all
was
the way back to even the second
Martial
edition Player's
Classes
Handbook,
guide
classes,
for second edition.
in a similar way.
Same for
The big question is here,
casters.
what do these groups mean? The main thing that they do for us is provide a way to deliver groups of classes certain elements of the game collectively. So you're going to see in this very Unearthed Arcana,
in fact,
some of the
that's what I do with my classes in Celestia, my custom campaign.
You'll see a feat where it says you maybe need to be a member of the Expert or the
All
Warrior
combat
group
classes, for instance, get
feat.
combat maneuvers.
What that does is it allows us
which are basically
to
extra
serve
feats.
up options to multiple classes simultaneously.
Maybe not as
and
many
also serve
for some
classes
as
like
others.
The Artificer that might not be in the same book as the 12 classes that are in the Player's Handbook. Because since we indicate here in this UA that the Artificer counts as an expert, that means anything that members of that group qualify for, the artificer qualifies for. And if we were ever to make a new class and put it into one of these groups, then suddenly it is able to tap into the shared tech of that group. You're going to see this
Solid concept.
in the next year
Though
or so,
I still don't see
where you'll
how
see
these
magic
three
items that,
fit together.
rather than having a particular class or a particular feature as a prereq, we'll have one of these groups or multiple groups as a prerequisite.
I like that part,
You're
though.
also going to see that in many cases, while the classes have retained their distinctiveness and their delightful asymmetry, where they work in the ways that are most appropriate for those individual classes, you're going to see more common pieces. So one example of that in this current Unearthed Arcana is all three of the expert classes have the expertise feature. The expertise feature is the signature feature of experts. And so that means even the ranger now has it. The bard and the rogue already had it in the 2014 Player's Handbook. Well, now the ranger gets it too, because one of the aspects of the ranger's class fantasy is being the best in a group, particularly at things like survival, stealth, so that the ranger can be fantastic.
I'm still not sold on that, but maybe we'll have to see.
And expertise is one of the ways that we do that. Another thing that the experts all have in common is that they are polymaths. They like to have pieces.
I don't really see the brutish rogue as being a polymath.
So it is by design that all three of the experts have components within them
or the
that are
grizzled
of things
warden of the forest,
the
ranger
group, the mage group, the priest group, but here mixed together in a way that is unique to each of the expert classes. Now we can dive in to each of the classes individually and their subclasses, but that overview I think is exciting because it shows that we're not only thinking now of the classes as individuals and also then as a whole family, but then also in these subgroups, and we can leverage these groups in a variety of ways that I think are going to be really fun, not only in terms of the options that we'll be able to give people, but even when it comes to party building. Something we note in this current article is that when you're building a party now, if you want to create sort of a classic balanced D&D party, one way you can do
balanced D&D
is
parties.
Make sure you have a member in your group from each of the class groups. Also, something that people are going to see in both the ranger and the bard in this Unearthed Arcana is a list of suggested prepared spells. One thing that we have seen over the last 8 years very clearly is that sometimes playing a spellcaster can be a little daunting.
Right.
And so what we've done to
that's because there's a lot of options.
Easier to ease into playing a spellcasting class that you've never played before is we provide from level 1 all the way up to level 20
I don't necessarily like the feature only for one reason.
Spells for the class. So again, you're going to see that here in the bard.
People can make
ranger,
well.
and in
I don't know about
Arcanas,
in this version, but in
classes, you're going to see it in them as
current version,
where you take some of the most iconic
you can have
spell options and put them on a list, so that again, whether you're a new
negotiator,
player
specialist
or a
bard,
veteran who may be
or
just like, I don't feel like
controller,
making a choice.
specialist
Please,
bard,
D&D book, tell me.
And your spells really figure into that.
Look at the suggested.
What is the default? Some hybrid that does nothing well.
You still have, of course, the option.
That's my criticism.
A long rest to change that list, but it gives you a nice starting point, so that you maybe don't have to do quite as much.
I do hear a lot about
when you decide to dive
new
into
players,
the
especially
class
having choice.
So ritual spellcasting has changed, or rather, people have more access to it now.
Yes. So
I forget what it's
one
called.
of the many goodies in the rules glossary.
It's like choice blindness or something.
The simple but
when you just are given a lot of choices. Some people find that hard.
Currently,
I don't find that hard. It's just time consuming.
If you can cast a spell and it has the ritual tag, you have the option of casting it as a ritual. In the past, a character had to have a feature that specifically unlocked rituals for them, and we've decided to experiment instead with just the ability of, again, if you can cast the spell and it has the ritual tag, you have the option of casting it as a ritual and just
So,
have that turned on for
talking about
spellcasters
Slush
of all
again and
sorts.
comparing it,
And all the
uh,
classes eventually
I actually made ritual magic its own
we didn't
thing.
touch upon this.
So,
Also can get access
it still
to
needs a
epic
feat
feats or epic boosts.
or
That is
a
right.
option.
Now, every class, what was previously their 20th level feature,
Right.
they now get at 18th level. And instead, now at 20th level,
Capstone
those
abilities.
epic boons that are in
2
the
levels early.
2014 Dungeon Master's Guide, you now get one when you hit 20th level. Now, we have a suggested one for each class, but when you hit 20th level, you now get to pick. And those epic boons
We'll look at those.
have
We'll look
been
at those.
reimagined as feats, and many of them are also available in this Unearthed Arcana.
That's awesome.
Okay, so that's our overview. We could talk about some things, but I already did some of it, like the class groups. And a lot of the things they talked about. I really want to see more subclasses. But it looks like the very first thing is the Bard. So I'm going to skip ahead to the Bard, which they made their 4th video on this subject. So they're a little out of order.
In this Unearthed